Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, AI chatbots are reshaping what therapy looks like.
I think that ChatGPT can help therapists step up their game.
We're in a moment where therapy bots are everywhere. But is the tech really that good? Or are we just that lonely? I'm Natasha del Toro, and this is The Take. I'll be honest, I did not expect to take chatbot therapy seriously when I started researching this story. But then I came across this study out of Dartmouth College where participants spent 8 weeks with an AI therapist. And to my surprise, many felt real relief. They had less anxiety, fewer symptoms of depression. Some even felt a connection. Now, the research is still early, but it did make me pause. If a machine can comfort us, what does that say about us? About the kind of support that we're looking for and maybe not getting? I reached out to Michael Alcée. He's a clinical psychologist and author based in New York. Michael, thank you so much for being here. I have so many questions, but before we dive in, I wanted to just kind of set the table here to understand, how do you define therapy?
Yeah, so the technical definition is it's the art and science of healing through a relationship. But it's better to actually see it, which is through a metaphor. And the metaphor is going to therapy is like having a table set before us, and we're inviting all the different sides of us to come to the table. And we're curious about which sides talk the most, which sides talk the least, and which sides aren't even invited or allowed at the table. Therapy helps us have a conversation with all those sides of ourselves.
That's beautifully said. I do have this running joke with my friends after we have a long conversation on the phone where I'll say, I'll bill you later, or vice versa. How is it different than talking to a friend?
Yeah, so the thing is that, a therapist, to use another analogy, noticing all those different shifts and changes between these different selves we have is an art and a science. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a jazz musician learns how to notice the different chord changes and then could play over them. A good therapist helps us notice all these shifts, also helps us put it into words, helps us understand what we're thinking and why and what we're feeling, and ultimately helps us to connect more to ourselves, to others in the world.
I love that. I love the sort of analogy to a jazz musician, that has to be really ready to improvise. Now, when I go online now, I see post after post of people saying that they've replaced their therapist with ChatGPT or some other AI bot.
If you're not using ChatGPT for therapy, what are you doing? Yes, I know a human probably works better, but I've never had a human therapist. I've only used ChatGPT as therapy.
I think ChatGPT just healed some of my abandonment wounds. I saw someone talking about using ChatGPT as a therapist, and I really thought that it could be a therapist, but boy, I'm gonna read you exactly what it told me that hit home with me, made me ugly cry for 30 minutes, and genuinely helped me and might help you.
I remember I did this once for a fight I had with an ex-boyfriend, and ChatGPT was like, the author of this article is feeling disrespected by their partner. And I was like, oh my God, that is the feeling. I didn't know it was the feeling, but that's why I'm so upset.
Michael, I'm just curious, as a therapist, what do you make of this moment that we're in, and people saying that they're relying on chatbots for therapy?
I'm not surprised, and I'm also not concerned, because I think one of the things about AI in terms of chatbots is that they're responsive. They help us to explore things, and they also try to adjust to what we're feeling, what we're noticing, what we're asking. And in a way, chatbot does what some of the best therapists do, which is figuring out how to zero in on what are some of the kind of issues you're looking at, but wait, let me understand who you are. And so it is funny that we should be finding this thing that is computer-based, technology-based, almost doing the same thing that the technology of being human, which is what therapy is about, helping us become more fully human, it's reminding us how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting when you say that, because I think you just told me that a human therapist there's an artistry there, and that they're like a jazz musician. And I don't typically think of jazz when I think of like a chat bot, right? Like I don't think that they would have the same abilities.
Yeah, that's funny, right? Like that you wouldn't expect it to be that way. But the thing is, a chatbot isn't just kind of logically, linearly finding something. It's also associative. AI is a little bit more sophisticated these days. It's not like just spitting out something at you that's just, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D. It's also searching in a wide way, which is also what we do emotionally. The best therapists also help us to kind of basically dream back into life. They help us kind of connect and make these new connections that are creative, but then they are also really discerning. So here's the funny thing. People often come to me and say, I had the greatest therapist. They were really amazing at listening. They made me feel so seen, so heard, but they didn't tell me exactly what to do and how to make it better. And then I went to this other therapist, and they were really amazing. They told me exactly what to do, but they didn't really listen.
Mm-hmm.
The best therapists bring both of those together. And I think AI is emulating us in that way at our best, which is I'm going to try and figure out what's going on and listen, and then I'm going to try to find solutions. And having those together, the thing that makes AI, I'm not concerned about it, is that AI is emulating us at our best.
There are just some very practical reasons why people are turning to these chatbots. It's like with ChatGPT or these chatbots, they don't cost what a human therapist costs, and
Right.
They're available 24/7, right? I understand that some of your clients use ChatGPT between sessions. What are kind of value are they finding in it?
Yeah, so I think that the wonderful thing that we shouldn't forget about AI is that it's supposed to enhance and facilitate. So I see people using it as often that becomes a jumping off point about deepening our conversation. I also think there's something empowering about it for people to say, I'm going to try and figure out how to find solutions and connections. And it's how it's used. I think one of the dangers of AI is if people think that it can replace the human connection and replace the sense of using it as a jumping off point. So in a way, I think a ChatGPT is something that you can use if you want. You don't have to use it, right? But if you do use it, you're using it in the same way that you use therapy, which is deepening how you think about things, opening up to new ways of feeling about something, and trying to see how you can find that new creative place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it can be really, really useful. And it's no different than asking a friend or a significant other. But I think the important thing is remembering that you're still the center. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, said that, people get really worried about AI. And he said, wait a minute, our culture is embedded in AI.
AI is all around us. It's, when you talk to Siri on your iPhone, there's not a human being in that exchange. Siri tells you the fastest way to get to grandma's house through the traffic that just swelled up in the last few moments. That's a form of AI.
And he said when people got really worried about AI is when it's going to write your term paper.
So AI beat us at chess. AI beat us in Jeopardy, okay? No one freaked out and ran for the hills when that happened. It only made headlines when AI figured out how to write your term paper. Oh, then all the liberal arts folks, they pooped their pants.
And he jokingly said, but wait, we can figure out a way how to use that, which is give people an oral exam to make sure that they're really learning. And I think it's all in how we kind of use this thing.
I'm so curious, though. Maybe you would walk me through how you incorporate like anything that ChatGPT says or whatever chatbot into your sessions.
Usually what people tell me is they ask ChatGPT something related to something that we're talking about in session. about their anxiety, about an issue with a family member, anything. And then we'll use that as a jumping off point to deepen our exploration. So I once had this situation where somebody had worries about, am I in the right relationship, right? Did I pick the right partner or did I make a mistake? This person was really, really obsessing about it, even though their partner was wonderful.
I see.
And they went to a therapist and the therapist said, you have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And it's a specific brand of OCD, which is relationship OCD. And so the therapist who knows the evidence and the research about OCD said, well, we're going to do the tried and true method, which is exposure response prevention. And they did that, but the person wasn't helped as much. So then they went to ChatGPT and talked to ChatGPT about some of their issues with relationships. And they were floored that ChatGPT actually asked more about their feelings. Engage different ways of, wait, maybe there are certain things about your relationship that are not just OCD, but that you actually have reasons to be struggling with. And then they came to me and they said, you know what? I went to ChatGPT and I realized it said everything that I've learned about how you work with OCD. And I thought, wow. So ChatGPT kind of was able to figure out a novel way of dealing with this that wasn't picked up by what was already out there. And the funny thing is, I think the good news is that I think that ChatGPT can help therapists step up their game. Because I think it's important for therapists to be as responsive and as thinking outside of the box, finding ways of finding solutions to things, but also getting creative with it.
More with Michael after the break. Michael, you sound very optimistic about the role of AI in mental health and therapy. You're almost convincing me that we don't need the human therapist. But so I want to know, where do you think that the line should be drawn?
Yeah, no, and I think that's really important. So the thing about the human connection is that there is nothing that replaces being with somebody in real time who you can feel their energy, you can feel their backstory along with you, you can feel their humanity. That is the most powerful and important thing. And we shouldn't forget that AI it's trying to do a part of that. But it's foolish, naive, and a little bit dangerous to think that that will replace the human element or rescue us from having to be in that human game.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. I actually, in researching this episode, I tried ChatGPT therapy on myself. And I will say again, as we're talking and you're telling me about the virtues of chatbot therapy, I'm very, very skeptical. And so I tried it. And, Michael, I've gone through some pretty significant things this year without getting into a lot of details, but there's been a lot of loss. I lost my home in Hurricane Helene, for example.
Yeah.
So, there's been a lot going on, as there is, I think, in anybody's life at any given moment. And when I put my prompts into ChatGPT, the response that it gave me, it was piercingly accurate,
Really?
almost too blunt. It was so good. What it told me was really good, but it was almost more than what I could bear to hear at that moment. It asked me to acknowledge some hard truths, and they were hard. And I don't know, the experience actually left me feeling sort of gutted.
That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, it was I needed some softness. The words were there, the things that I needed to hear, and it did try to tell me how to reframe it, whatever. But the emotions, having someone sit there with me in that moment or hand me a tissue, that wasn't there.
I think you're right on. I think that's it. I think that's the difference. I think the capacity for someone to be with us to soften these things and then also help share themselves in being able to connect to that deeply is something that we feel in the energy, and that doesn't get transmitted with ChatGPT. That is its major shortcoming and fault. And that's what I mean. It really should only be looked at as an enhancement and a facilitator, not as a replacement. Because here's the wonderful thing about being human. We have this capacity to feel deeply and think deeply. And there's something magical about what we as humans do with that. And ChatGPT can't do that. And I don't think it ever will. I think it will try. And I don't think we should ever be as foolish and naive to think that it should do that. Because that also cheapens our own humanity. So when I'm saying that I think ChatGPT can be useful or helpful, it's only as a supplement. It's only as a, oh, you don't have anybody to really bounce this off on in a human way, in a nuanced way. And if this can help you and help remind you of that, hopefully if it brings you towards the more human connection, that's good. And I think one of the reasons why we're spooked by AI, I was thinking that we should call this age the algorithm age, because we're in that algorithm place and we're so used to the really bad uses of algorithms, right? Social media trying to get us to click or get more ad revenue, right? Or the kind of algorithm that has us stay in echo chambers rather than like really broadening ourselves. I think the chatbot is a little less susceptible to that because it is more responsive. But you're right, it doesn't do enough with that situation, with your situation, of noticing how this is affecting you. When I spit something back at you, ChatGPT can't say, oh, I noticed you respond. I noticed when I said that back to you that I saw you got sad or you got hurt or you felt judged.
So there's we're talking about kind of a lack of empathy, right? I mean, they do fake empathy. That is what chatbots are doing. But it's missing the human touch, right?
They're not living. And the other thing is that AI doesn't have a deep human backstory. It has information that we've given it, but it doesn't have a psychological backstory. It never was raised by parents. It never had to deal with bullies. It never had to struggle with who am I? All of the human things that we contend with AI has never done. So even though it has information and knowledge, it doesn't have experience.
Right. Or true empathy.
True
empathy. Yeah.
True empathy. Profound empathy.
There's one study from the American Psychiatric Association that looked at how well ChatGPT did compared to real therapists when using cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT. That approach focuses on how thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all connected. And so if you want to improve your emotional well-being, you have to change unhelpful thoughts and behaviors. So that study found, therapists are outperforming ChatGPT when it came to things like setting goals and helping people think through their problems. So what do you think that shows about what AI still can't do, even when it's trying to follow a script?
Yeah, and the funny thing, there was another study in the positive end that showed that people can't really tell the difference between a ChatGPT therapist and a real therapist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is called the Turing test. So if you can't tell what's a machine and a human. But you're right, there's this other study which shows the opposite, that maybe therapists are better. And you know what I thought was ironic and funny about this? Cognitive behavioral therapy is much less reliant on the relationship. It's a machine, right?
It focuses less, like you're saying, on the relational aspect and more on okay, did you wake up early and walk the dog and start a routine?
Right. And also, what are like you said, what are the thoughts that are distorted that are making you feel, depressed or getting in the way of your feeling empowered, right? And a lot of in that study, a lot of the tasks were setting goals and exploring things in a certain way. And I was surprised. I thought ChatGPT would do just as well or better.
I guess what it also shows us is that we're just at the precipice of all of this. There's a lot more research that needs to be done to see what the effectiveness is of chatbot therapy long term. An OpenAI spokesperson told us that they're monitoring this area closely. Along with researchers at the MIT Media Lab, their earlier studies found that most people don't actually use ChatGPT for emotional support. And for those who do, the impact really depends on how and why they're using it. OpenAI says the tool isn't a replacement for mental health care, and it encourages people to turn to professionals when they need help. Well, Michael, we talked about how some therapists have worried if ChatGPT may replace them one day.
I know, I could be out of a job.
you could be.
Right, how come we shouldn't be talking here? Don't tell them anything.
Don't promote this too much.
Yeah, please.
As a journalist, I also worry sometimes that ChatGPT is going to put me out of a job. But I did ask ChatGPT if chatbot therapy should replace human therapists, and I think you will be happy to know.
Yeah.
It told me that chatbots are tools, that they're not replacements for human therapists. So I think your job is safe.
I think so too, and that's very wise, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I'm so pro-human and pro-relationship. As messy as humans are, as messy as we are, I still feel that I'm always rooting for the human, knowing that these chatbot therapies are a useful tool. But I'm still rooting for humans.
And here's a cool quote that I think you'll appreciate on that level. This is from Richard Powers' novel, Bewilderment. He says something so beautiful. He says, "My boy was a pocket universe I could never hope to fathom. Every one of us is an experiment, and we don't even know what the experiment is testing. Nobody's perfect, but we all fall short so beautifully."
Oh.
Right. And I think that's what you're getting at.
Yes, that's beautiful. Yeah, the goal should not be perfection.
Not at all.
And maybe there's something a little too perfect about the way ChatGPT spits out exactly what you want to hear.
I wouldn't look at it as, my idea for ChatGPT is help us to get into the messy goodness together even more. If it helps that, it's great. If it just gives you the answer as if that's done, that's not the human story.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really enjoyed that conversation.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
With a real human. And that's The Take. How have you used AI in your own life? And do you think it's helped or hurt when it comes to emotional support? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I'm always checking in, so let's keep the conversation going.